So have you tried that use case? Janaki, will you be sharing the screen today? Or who else is interested to share the screen?
I have, but I didn't get the exact flow actually. So just I tried like what I understood from the use case actually. Is it okay to share?
Yeah, okay.
Hello?
Yeah, Janaki, you can share me your screen.
Okay, okay. Will do.
Others tried it, were you able to execute it?
Can you enable the screenshot?
Yeah, I have done it. Okay. So I created first name, last name, the department name as well. Main capacity. Okay. Why did you create different setters instead of using the same variable name? Because you already have your password, right? So you can use the same setters and getters, right? Like, why did you try with a different name, like on purpose, or
Password change like we are not getting any variable for that.
no,
Right?
no, password change, it's like a function, right? It's like a feature. But you have used set password change. So we don't have method like that, right? Either you can give password change, or if you're using the method of password, like set and get set password, then you can create set password and get password. The naming convention is actually confusing because you have used set and then password change.
Okay, 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 okay.
Suppose if you're using only the password, like whatever variable name you created above, and for that, if you're creating a setter, then you should have created set password as it is present in your variable name. So it is just your, yeah, exactly. So this would be your setter as for password, where you, when you're creating your change method, right? Change password is a separate function. Then you can have a separate method, and for that, whatever details you want, you can fetch it and do the change request.
Change. Okay, okay.
Okay. So to execute this email application, you have the attributes, and where are you going to execute this, in which program?
No, that's what like I just created the set get, but I haven't created the method for that to execute it. Only the first part I have done, like based on the department, we will just create the mail
Okay,
ID, right?
so
Only
let's
that part.
see what you have done. So you have
Okay.
you have created the scanner object. You have getting the first name and last name and department name, but the user will not know the department name. Right? You
Oh,
as
so
an organization, you're gonna keep that user into specific department. That can be you can also fetch the department from the user if he is aware. But if suppose he is not aware, that will remain as an empty every time. So in that case, you can create it in two ways. Either by fetching it from the user, and if it is not empty, and if it is not empty, like there is no value present in that, then you can have your own logic get implemented.
okay. Hmm.
But
Oh,
whatever you have
got
done
it.
is pretty good. But as per your the use case, only the user has he's a new hiree to your company. You're creating the email ID based on the department. So the department can be created by yourself instead of getting it from the user.
Okay. But we can randomly assign the department, or is there any other way to?
No, you can actually what you have did is you have created the switch case, right? You're getting the
Yes.
details from the user, and based on that, you're generating an email where you're actually creating the email in this format. This
Yeah,
is
just
also fine. Yeah,
concatenating
this
this.
is also fine. But if suppose the user is not having an idea about his department, there's also a scenario like this, right? He might not know the department. If he's coming into
Yes.
any organization, he just provided his details, but he's not sure like in which department he's going to be putting. In that case, your data would always be blank, right? So instead of ending it like while department is equal to empty, in that scenario, you can have a separate case where the department value is empty. then you can have a default department created and set it for that. So you can have one more.
Oh, okay. One more case for that.
One more
But
the department
I
is
did this like to break this chain because we will not know like how many employees will be there, right? Actually, so if count is
for our
known,
use
then I
case,
can
we have
keep
provided
for
only
loop.
3 cases, right? Sales,
Oh.
development, and accounting. These are the 3 cases. But out of this use case, like if you're writing a program for a huge case, huge different scenarios, like you might not get the actual output which you're expecting from the user. So instead of sales, he might have given a different input. In that case, if you're handling it as like the default case, it will always get into that default. But there might also be the case where your case might be empty because he might not be aware of that.
Yeah, that I got it. Like in case of empty, like we need to assign the default value instead of going into this statement actually.
Yeah. So where in the while condition, you can give a value like not equal to empty, and not equal to empty should help you to get rid of the switch block.
Okay, but for loop we cannot use it, right? Because we will not know the exact count of the things, right? So in that case, we cannot use the for loop for this case.
Yeah, that we'll use in the password generation. That is something you learned today, and post that you'll be using the password creation randomly. But as of now, the scenario which you created is pretty good. But one more case you need to handle if the user is not giving a value. If it is empty, right? Then you need to add one more case where you are going to generate the email in a default department name. So in that case, what you can do is wherever you're creating your department name, right? The department name variable where you have created, you can initialize a value there itself as department equal to by default as admin, or by default as employee, some specific department, or he's in a bench, or he's a fresher, like some kind of department, random static value, and you can create the email as of now with that static value. Once he provides the actual department name, you can override and create your email as per the department he has provided.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we are good with this. So okay, like did anyone try in a different way, or you also try using the switch cases? Did anyone try with if else, or just went with switch block, or did you try or did not try?
Sorry, Sneha, I didn't try.
You didn't try?
So I'll try it over the weekend.
Yeah, fine, no issues. So this is the idea. So you can also try. So whatever you learned, it's similar use case, but only thing is like instead of having an option as your bank option, you're having it in the form of department. That's it. Okay. So now let's learn something called as a random method. Okay. So let me share the screen. Post that, Janaki, we can enhance the project of yours.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So able to see my screen? Okay. So in the random generation, right? So Java has something called math related functions. So in the same import package of java.util, we have something called random. So what this random actually does is, like, for example, you're getting OTP, right? Whenever you're doing a transaction, you're getting a random 6-digit number or random 4-digit number to do a second level of authentication for you to just log in and make sure that you are the valid user to get into that particular application. Same way, whenever you're logging to a new time, first time you're creating an account in Facebook, or you're creating a first time account in any specific applications or website, you'll get a default password, right? Post that, they'll give you a chance to change your password. So this would be a more generic use case in most of the web applications. So why do we need to create a random password, and how we can create a random password? We can actually write our own logic. So for example, instead of not using this random password, I can say like string my password text is equal to I'm just having some random text and some random numbers, some random, yeah, some kind of password text I have created. So whenever a user is creating his account for the first time, what I can do is I can create one for loop int I equal to 0, I less than my password text dot. There's something again length in string also, but this would be not an attribute. This would be a method. So I'm just using that. And on doing the iteration, I'm going to create a password of 4 digits. So what I'm going to do is so I can give a condition. So what I have done is from the password text in the entire string, I'm doing an iteration. I just gave an even number condition. Like if it is divided by 2, in that case, for that respective I condition, I'll be taking the password. If not, he'll be getting a different password. So my I position alone just gets changed, and every time whenever I'm planning to create it, this, so let me create it as a separate method. Okay. So it's going to return me a default password. So I need to provide the default. So what I'm going to do is the for loop ends. So here I'm going to give return my default password value. So here let's call the default password. Let me create it static, so I don't need to create an object. So I'm just going with this. Let's see what is happening.
Line number 15, you are trying to find the remainder or just the quotient? Is it I mod 2 or I by 2?
No, I'm basically checking whether that remainder is 0. That's it. Just a
You
moment.
should be using modulus
Yeah,
operator,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Actually, this is not happening here. So based on this, my character is getting appended with a default password. So since I am using the password length, I'm getting this huge password. If you can reduce this, or if you can reduce this to a specific value, right? You can reduce that and you can make a default value of 5 or 4, and you can create your own password and you can have your own logic. But every time to make a random number, right? Right now I'm having a password text here, I'm using it. But when you write a code and you can't maintain this text often because it's something which is very easy to decrypt by any kind of hacker. So to avoid that, what is Java is giving is there's something called random class. So this random class will help you to create a random number on runtime, and this will not be repetitive every time. So here we have some methods. So here also we have few methods. Maybe I can try here. So this is again your normal class, and you can see whether this class is static or a normal class based on the class definition which you have it here. And this is just a normal class. We don't have any static keyword or anything. So we can just create a normal random class. So let's do that. So here you can see the number of methods this particular random class provides us. Okay, so these are the attributes it is actually providing us. And here you can get the details whichever you want. You can get the next, if you're taking as an integer, you can take the respective next in. If you're trying to get it as a long value or what to say, a double value, you have the relevant methods as you have in your scanner class. So everything is similar to your scanner class. Only thing is it will give you a default generated value. So right now, let me print the value which is getting printed here. So I got some other random value. Let me print it again. So if you see, earlier we got some value with 1.10. Now, if you see, when on every execution, we are getting a different value. So if you don't want negative values, you can control that by explicitly by giving conditions after getting this value. If you are okay to get any type of value, you can have it any kind of value. So this generates you a random number, which will be very hard to identify by any of the end users. So that is the reason we go with random. If you are pretty good at writing logics and you can write your own logic, then you can go ahead with this. But this is just a way where we have system defined random methods where you can use it for as of now. But if any use case comes into picture, like there might be use case like whenever you're creating your ID, right? If you're student ID or an employee ID, there might be a request like your employee ID should start with, if you're working in any particular specific organization, they need to have the respective organization first letter as your first letter. So if it's a Wipro, it's the V. If it's in a Society General, you want to have SG, and whatever, like if you're working specific to Oracle, you can have it O, any kind of specific first letter, followed by the employee's last name and the employee's first name. So let's say like if it's like I'm taking my name itself, Snehilata, then I can have just SL followed by the some random number 0000 and the employee number, which can be of 5 digits. So if your employee, if your organization has more than 50,000 or more than 1 lakh, based on that, this particular ID difference can vary it out. You can have like same thing like this or like this, anything, but they have some structure. In this case, you can't generate this as a random number. This has to be a sequence. Like if suppose like I'm the first time I'm getting into the organization, I'm getting 777. And whoever is coming, the next person should have the value as 778 and not a random number. So this would be kind of sequence thing. And for sequence generator, we need to build our own logic, and that can be done by ourselves. But in case of like when you're creating an OTP or when you're creating some random number, you can use our system's util package which has random class, and you can cut short. Like if you don't want this huge value, or if you don't want negative values, on top of this, you can write your own logic to make it more specific, and you can send that particular OTP to your respective mobile number or to an email notification, which we'll be doing once you start networking concepts. So any doubt in this random class? And this is again available in your Java util package. Okay, now coming to your math operations, right? We saw the arithmetic operations which we can use. So let's say we know the arithmetic operator. So there's something called as, in Java, by default, we have lang package, which is the default package. No need to import it directly. It is implicitly provided. There's also something called math functions. Like all your classes would be available in math. Okay, so I can show that here first. So let me say math. So which is also again within the Java. So let me go to this math class. So if you see here, in this particular RT.jar, you have something called lang package. And in the lang package, we have again something called math class. Okay. And in that math class, you can have your respective methods, whichever you wanted to use. So like you would have heard about the sine, cos, tan, like whatever methods you have learned in your geometry or in algebra, right? There's some methods like float, there's some methods like seal. So what is the purpose of these methods? Where do we need to use them? So in our case, absolute value. So you have an idea on absolute value, right? You guys have an idea, or should I need to explain on absolute purpose? Can someone say what does absolute does? Absolute value of 3.66 or 3.55. Kirba, you are a Oracle, right? You have an idea on absolute methods, right?
Absolute, like rounding off, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of a rounding off. Will it accept only your numerical value, or will it also accept your decimal values?
I think.
Okay, let's give it a try.
It will,
something. So if you see here, like if there are two random classes, so there's explicitly a random class, and there's also a method called random within your math class. So you can either use math.random, or you can use directly the random class, which is being provided here. So let's print this value and see what is the difference of these two implementations. So this is again a double value. So this is specific to double. If you want to convert this double to integer, you have to write on top of that a specific logic. But specifically, this random class has been evaluated or has been produced, and this particular class will give you all type of return types like integer, double, float, any kind of integral or float related data type values. And that is the one this has been explicitly recently created. But earlier we used to use only this math.random. And in this math.random, so we have something called random class. You can observe here the static keyword which you have used, and final is more of a constant, right? So for that purpose, they have used here, and they are creating a new random value every time whenever you're invoking that particular class. So in this, they are actually creating the next random number. Since this particular class is static, they have used the class name dot the respective generator and the respective method. They haven't created any object. So whenever you get a chance to use these specific inbuilt functions, try to see how they have structured or used the logic of the static keywords, how they have created the class, what kind of naming conventions they have used. So try to have a look on it. So it will be helpful for you to write a better programming going forward. So if you go into this random method, here let's find next int, right? So here see, they have written explicitly a logic. So in that next, they're taking that, since int is accepts 32 bits, which is 4 bytes, they have taken the next and passing the respective bits. And based on that, they have generated a logic. And see, if you see, they have used a do while loop and they are using some condition. So basically, whenever you're initializing a value, right, those are called as seed in terms of Java. If you go into any kind of implicit or predefined classes, you can observe the seed related variables much, because these are nothing but initialization variables. Mostly they'll be using these kind of references in terms of your iterations or in terms of pointing to your next addresses. Instead of giving previous and next very random value, they'll be using the seed related attribute in your classes. And they have used some logic. And if you see this atomic long is a class which is again present in your package, and this particular package helps you to create the relevant values supporting your JVM. And that is why we don't need to look into this, but it's always better to have a look on and understand what type of classes we have and what kind of coding they have used here. Why do we need to have a static block? Instead of having static block, what if we create our own method and we override them? So we'll come to that concepts in some time, but these are some things you can explore. And for this, if you're using STS, I'll suggest you to install a plugin. I can show you that plugin. Okay, so there's something called as JDGUI. Okay, so this will help you to open your jar files and see all your .class files. Okay, and you can explore this, but you just need to drag your .jar. So for this, let me open the C program files, Java. Let me go to JDK. Bin. So where the rt.jar file will be located? Is it in bin or is it in library? Can someone say? No one. Is it in JRE or is it in bin or is it in library? Where should I go now?
I think it was in JRE. Not sure.
Okay, where should I go now?
Bin.
Bin, okay. rt.jar. I don't find anything here. So where should I go?
Library.
Yes. So all the executable files of your JDK tools, right, is always available in your library, and that too in your JDK platform, because we are developing the program and we need this rt.jar, and whoever has given the compiled programs, for that also we need an rt.jar to execute them. So you can find this rt.jar both in JDK and JRE. Please don't forget, this is also a kind of a certification question. So please make sure in which part you have all your jars. So if I need to use this particular jar and look into it, I can just drag and I can paste here. If you see, there's a package structure created. And here you can see there's a COM package. So earlier it was with Sun and right now it's with Oracle. So that is why their enhancements are in new Oracle package and the older versions are in the Sun package. So right now we are looking into which one? Now, why did we come here for rt.jar? To explore the actual code, how they have written. So for that purpose, you can go into any of these classes and you can see how actually your code looks like. Whenever you open your .class file, you cannot actually look into the actual variable they have created, because whenever it is getting converted into bytecode, few of the parameters or few of the references, whatever they have created, would be converted into a reference value or a kind of temporary value in terms of your .class. This would not be the actual variable name they have used in your .java file. It's just a reference, an executed .jar file. So whenever you get a chance, try to install this software JDGUI, which is an executable. You can find it in normal systems. You can actually just download and keep it. And you can, so since you don't have the STS tool installed or IntelliJ, you didn't start it. So I prefer you to have this JDGUI and explore the rt.jar file and see what all things we have under JDK, what all things we have under ORG. So what is this w3c.com and what do we have within that? So these are the supporting files which we will use going forward whenever you want to develop some kind of programming using your XML or any type of JSON or any kind of file related attributes. If you want to do a file related transactions, we have something called NIO package, where we'll be using all the byte related class and all the related, like whatever classes we need to use to use some file related operations, then we can use it from the NIO package. So you can explore the util package and see what are the methods, what are the classes we have here. And you can explore, at least you can just have a look and see the names. No need to have a complete in-memory knowledge, but at least you can experience what do we have and where do we have. So if you see there's something called random, there's something called random access class, and there's something called as random access sublist. So once you learn the polymorphism concept and the inheritance, it would be better for you to differentiate between your class and the interface. So till then, you can't guess it whether it's a class or an interface. Why do we need an interface and all? But try to experience and explore the packages which is provided by our system, JVM itself. Okay. For that, try to install any kind of decompiler. So that is Java decompiler. And I can share you this Java decompiler package. So you can actually you just need to install it for the one time and you can use it anytime. So that is the one thing. So you have any questions here? If not, I meant to cover one more concept. So you are aware of math class, which comes from your lang package, and you're also aware of your util package, which has your random class. So now coming to the break statement, right? So we use this break statement only in the switch case, right? Is it fine to use it in if block or for block? Can we use the break in other loops, or is it only specific to your switch case? What do you think so?
Specific to switch case?
Why so? Like, why do you think so?
Because in the if condition, once the condition is not satisfied, it will come out of the loop. Right?
Yeah, so you can
No
use
need to
that.
specifically
You can use the break even in the other looping conditions. Say example, right now I have, say, if the particular student has scored a mark greater than 75, then I'm actually processing his piece of code. Okay. If not, I want to break it. If that particular student is not greater than 75, I don't have any other conditions or else block anything. Only if he's greater than 75, I'm going to execute it. If not, I'm going to give a break that and going to stop, give a hard stop that you're not going to proceed further and you don't have a seat for your higher studies. That's it. That is the only statement I'm going to give here. In that case, what I can do is I can have some business logic, whatever you wanted to have, and I can give a break to come completely out of this loop. So I don't want this to be executed furthermore. Only if he has greater than 75 overall, I'm allowed to give him a seat. Otherwise, I'm not. I'm not giving considerations here. If you have considerations, you would have gone to the else block. But I don't have any considerations. And if I want to break it in that particular instance, then I can use this break keyword even in the loops. Okay. There is something called continue keyword. What is this? What do you mean from continue?
So ignore the next instruction and
so
go to the
continue is
next.
kind of going for next. Yeah. But why do we need to continue? So there might be cases for you when you're writing a for loop, right? Say, let's take the even number. So if I have this even number logic successfully created, then I'm saying continue to continue and increment the next value by I equal to I plus 2. I'm giving some more condition like this. So I don't want to break that just by giving a statement println even number. That's it. I don't want to give that. I want to continue it, or I want to skip that condition. I don't want to have a break, or I don't want to hold it that particular execution in that place, but I want to continue the flow. In that case, I can give as continue keyword. Okay. So you can either just give continue, or you can have something with continue followed by label name. Okay. So there's something called label in Java, which is nothing but similar to your variable reference. But how do you create your variable? Say example, I'm creating, say, outer loop. This is my outer variable name. And within that, I'm having my do block and the while, and then I have my condition here. Okay. So in this, I wanted to give some break condition based on my label. Okay, in that case, I can just give break and I give outer. That's it. So instead of just giving the break, I'm using this label. So what does it mean actually? Like, okay, let me say like I have one more do loop here. Okay, so I have one more loop and here I have one more while condition. So whenever this particular inner do is coming, I'm breaking it out based on some my business logic, whatever logic it might be. And based on that, I'm giving break and outer. So you can use this outer as a label, which is still works for you. Like we can continue in the second meeting invite and we can continue this piece and then we can do a hands-on. Could you all please join the second invite? Stopping sharing.